Life is a playing field, and you are part of the playing field. And on this playing field, there are games. And you can be part of the games too. The games are socially constructed. So in the games, you're playing a role, right? It's man-made. It's like a simulation because it's something that's happening within the playing field. But fundamentally, you are the player and the playing field, not the game. And you can step into the game and you can play a role in the game, but that's not you. That's just something that you have assumed, tried on, stepped into. So the games that people are running socially and the agreements that we form about what reality is and who we are, that's all secondary to the actual playing field. And the playing field, as well as your life, the actual life force coming through you, operates according to natural law. Now, natural law is essentially the biology, it's the physics, it's the mathematics. It's the stuff that we learn through inquiry, that we reveal about nature, that operates whether or not we understand it. It is self-evident, it is self-sustaining, and it can be revealed and discovered when we inquire. Now, natural law is not the same as the man-made rules in the game. The man-made rules in the game that relate to our identity, the character we're playing, the things that are right and wrong, all of that is something that we invest our life energy into to service, to create, to sustain, or to destroy. But the natural and the real is not created, sustained, or destroyed. It just is, okay? It's just the fabric. And so knowing the delineation between these two things, natural law, which is primary, and man-made rules or games or social contracts, which are secondary, can really help you navigate life and reclaim your energy, help you re-own yourself. You become a sovereign. And a sovereign means that your locus of power, where you place your power, in other words, is within. A sovereign is not someone who belongs to a system in order to have a sense of self. That is a character. A character belongs to a system in order to have a sense of self, because the character's role is only validated by the system and by the game that they are playing. So all of these systems that we're part of are validated and confirmed by consensus, by agreement. When enough people say that something is so, it becomes stabilized in this reality. It only becomes stabilized through consensus. The truths that we talk about most often are not actual truths, they're just agreements that we take to be true. The truths that we talk about often are not laws of nature, they're just human rules that we act according to habitually, that others act according to habitually, that seem close enough to being real. Okay? So this is really important. When you're harmonizing with natural law, you will know, because it will be peaceful and it will be life-giving in the long term. Now it's funny because of course bodies age and all of that happens, but the sense of your beingness will be alive. It will feel original, you will feel authentic, you will feel connected to something that is greater than your sense of self. You'll feel expansive in that way, regardless of how old you are. You will feel okay. It will just be as it is. When you're operating in the realm of agreements and offers, you will feel that you need to control everything, and you'll feel that if you don't play the game right, you're fucked. Okay? That feeling of, if I don't get this right, I'm fucked, comes from being identified with the character or role you were playing in life. you can go about the world and have relationships. You can move your body in certain ways. You can create certain things with your hands or with your intellect. And that has nothing to do with social roles and social games. Your health, your creation, your participation in life is not bound by social contracts. In fact, it's usually social contracts which bind you into a fixated identity and cause you to service the idea of who you are at the expense of what you actually are. Okay, so a simple example of this is if I'm trying very, very hard to maintain the sense that I am Jack, and to maintain the character of Jack, and to prove to everyone that I am Jack, and to prove to everyone that Jack means certain things and that Jack plays a certain role, I'm doing that with the energy that comes through the actual substance of my being. So my being is what enables Jack to exist and the identity of Jack and the games Jack plays. So a lot of people identify with the name, they identify with the role at the expense of the substance of what they actually are, which is the living witness, the conscious biology, right? So these social games operate between consciousness and matter. They essentially have a parasitic effect. You could say it's parasitic because a lot of the time we don't realize we're in these social games and contracts. If we're creating the social games and contracts, if we're game designers, then we're just investing in them, right? We're just placing energy into these creations. But when it's someone else's creation, you don't know you're playing in their game, that game is parasitic because you're investing your life force without knowing into a series of equations and agreements which siphons that life force and distributes it according to whoever created the game. So this is also called looshing, and it's essentially using energy as currency. And it's the idea that when we're all playing these social roles within a game, our characters exist almost within a matrix. They exist to validate certain truths, to sustain certain systems, and the fuel used is the blood and the chi, the life, the energy, the breath. The bodies are used as fuel to support these parasitic idea entities or identities which exist between consciousness and matter and which reduce the level of consciousness in the matter because they're siphoning out the consciousness, and reduce the level of energy that comes from the body and the matter back into the consciousness. So if life is a cycle of consciousness and matter, and it's a cycle, and it builds, and it refines, and it's purified, then whenever you are investing in an idea entity or a socially constructed game or a role play, unconsciously, you're essentially interrupting the cycle. You're taking that energy in the cycle and you're placing it outside of yourself somewhere, hoping that that thing you're investing it in is going to give the energy back to you. And that's a bet, right? That's a I hope. That's a need to manipulate and control in some way. And that's okay if you know you're doing it, if you know what you're looking for and you understand the risks involved in that. But if you don't know what you're doing, then it's a slippery slope. So all that's required to exit that dynamic is to recognize that that dynamic exists. You don't have to tear down the system. You don't have to tear down the game. You don't have to change your name from Jack to Jill. You don't have to fuck with that level of reality. You simply recognize that this is occurring, and you simply disidentify with the character and with the game. You can still move through the world in some way as if you're playing it, but you can disidentify with it. You can recognize that you are choosing to play it, and that even if you choose not to exit the game, that is a choice, And in recognizing the choice, you are then back in the seat of consciousness, in the throne of consciousness, in the sovereign aspect of your being, which means you're not beholden to the game in the same way. However, you will be conscious of the effects of the game, and if you operate out of integrity, or if you operate incoherently and you're not in line with your innermost heart and the instinct or intuition coming through you, that will have a consequence. To go against something that you know and to have a feeling in your body that it's not right, but to do it anyway, has an energetic consequence, okay? You're choosing to play the game of denial, and the game of denial has consequences. So yeah, natural realm, natural law, the stuff that just is, that we learn about and we discover, that we should always be humble when we're learning about and discovering, because we can never know it fully. We're always discovering it. It's almost the true science, right? The true science which comes through our being, through like direct study, direct self-study, direct inquiry, self-evident, things that you can notice about consciousness itself. That's like natural law. And then you have agreements about who we are, what we're doing, and you have consensus, which consolidates that extrapolation. And when enough people agree on something, it doesn't actually make it true. It just means that those people think that it's true. And if enough people think that it's true, then often they'll fight to protect the belief that it's true. But it still ain't true. It just is a game. It's just one way of seeing things. So when you come back to the understanding of natural law, you're coming back to the source of your energy. And when you come back to the source of your energy and you're respecting your biology and you're cultivating the cycle of energy, consciousness, matter. And there are ways to do this through Qigong, through certain yogic practices. The best ones are very simple. And you get this energy that you cultivate, and then you can choose to live in creator mode, right? So like you can step into and out of roles consciously. You can step into and out of games consciously. You can accept that you're in certain games, see the game, choose to remain in it while you create elsewhere. There's all of these options available to you because you have enough energy coming from your connection to truth, knowing who you are, not investing in a lie. There's all this energy that you can use to create. And it's like your being becomes clearer. The person you think you are when you're investing in games and contracts subconsciously or unconsciously, the person you think you are is only a tiny, tiny pixelated, clumsy, square version of your true complexity. Your true complexity, your true blueprint that is your body, that consciousness comes and shines through like sun through stained glass, that is absolutely exquisite. And when you remove these middlemen, these in-between parasitic idea entities that you've identified with, then what comes through is this clear channel of truth. And it comes from you. It doesn't come from looking around at what everyone else has said. It doesn't come from research. It comes from me-search. It doesn't come from, it's not a truth that someone else says is true. It comes from a witnessing of something which existed prior to the witnesser. It's like it's a discovery of something, an unearthing of something which is innate in life and which can be verified and can be tested, but only when there's another witness who's willing to do that for themselves. It's an inside game. It's not, it's no longer a consensus game. So this realm of like originality and this realm of genuine truth inquiry is equally accessible to everyone, and we can all arrive at the same realizations, but we can't give them to one another. And that's actually how we know that it's real, because all of these other things we can tell and we can convince and we can manipulate, and someone can introject a belief, meaning that they essentially take on the belief as their own without their own inquiry. But with natural law and with this knowledge of how things really work, you can only arrive at it by yourself, but you will arrive at it as you arrive towards yourself, because it is what you're made of. So I hope that makes some kind of sense. And if it doesn't, that doesn't matter, because you'll figure it out. But yeah, that's the delineation between social contracts and man-made rules and the fundamental operating principles of everything.